Good day. Today I would like to look at heavy-bodied paint. We get a lot of information and reviews about Cryla and Golden, but when it comes to Iris, there's not much information available. So Iris is a South African brand made by Prime Art. So I'd like to look at Iris and compare it to Cryla and Golden. In terms of price, Iris is very cheap. Cryla is moderately priced, and then Golden is rather expensive. So if we look at the tubes, it has a number 238 on it. You can see some information on it. I do not see any information about the pigment or the light fastness on it. The manufacturer is Prime Art. I've contacted them, but they haven't replied to me, and I've also requested Art Savings Club. That's now the online shop where I buy my paint, and they've assisted me in asking them on my behalf about the pigments, and they also ignored. Now in comparison, you can see with Cryla there's a permanence rating, a star rating. It's got a star rating of 3. The highest rating is 4 as far as I could gather. On the back they also have more information. They tell you what pigment is inside, so it's PR108, and it also gives you the ACM method that they've used to test it, and it's got a light fastness of 1 according to this method, which is an excellent light fastness. So then Art Savings Club and Golden has been kind enough to give me the sample, and you can also see that it's got all the information on it that one required. So the ACM method was also used of a rating of 1, and they also tell you what pigments are inside the paint, so it's PR122. So that's the biggest problem I have with Iris, is that we do not know what pigments are in it, and we have no idea about the light fastness. Now I'm just going to squeeze out a little bit so that we can see how thick the paint is and so on. So here I've squeezed out, and there it sits. Doleroni cadmium red, so it's also rather stiff. Doleroni magenta, you can see it's rather stiff. Golden one, you see it's also rather stiff. So all the paints are rather stiff. They're not running down the vertical piece of paper, because I'm now having this on my easel in a vertical position. All of them are sitting there without running down. So they are all heavy bodied indeed. So I'm going to spread the Iris. Here it's going. You can see what it looks like. Spread it a bit so you can see the coverage. Let's look at the Doleroni red. Spread it. You can see it feels thicker. It appears thicker. And then we have the magenta. Spread it. Because the magenta is more transparent. And here we have the golden. That also seems a bit transparent. So the cadmium hue of Iris has got a bit of a different color to the real cadmium red pigment, and it appears as though it's either got a less pigment in it or it's a bit more transparent. So it's a bit difficult to say, because if I compare the Iris red with the Doleroni magenta, it's more similar in terms of how it responds on the paper, where the Doleroni red it's really opaque and it's very dense. There's enough pigment in the Iris paint, even though it looks a bit more transparent in comparison to the Doleroni. So I don't find a problem. I can still use it, because if you put it very thickly, it's not transparent or anything. You can still just plaster it on as a nice thick paint. I've now placed a little bit of white from Doleroni here, and a little bit of each color. Normally when you start mixing paint, you can get a better idea of the pigment quantities and intensity. Okay, so let's first just mix this, and okay, that's still a satisfying pink, and it feels nice and buttery. I mean, the texture of the Iris paint, I really enjoy it, so there's nothing wrong with that. So let's see what this one looks like. Now mixing it with the white, you can really see that the red hue, the cadmium red hue, color is really different to the real cadmium. You can see that one is much more pink and this one has got a bit more of a yellowish tint to it. But if I just look at the intensities, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the Iris paint's quantity of pigment. I've mixed it with more or less the same white and it's still looking quite bright, the color. Okay, let's mix these ones. So you can see there's a color difference between the golden that I'm mixing now and the Dollaroni magenta, and it's because the pigments are different. Dollaroni also have the pure pigment, so if you look at the tube, the golden's pigment is a pure pigment, PR122, and the Dollaroni has got a mixture of PV19 and PR122. Dollaroni do have the pure pigments as well, of each of them. So because the pigments are different, we do expect a difference in color, so that's not surprising. Okay, so I like the creamy texture or the buttery texture of Iris paint. It appears as if the pigment quantity in the paint is good, color is bright, even though it's different. The cadmium hue has a different color to the real cadmium paint, but I mean, that's not too much of a problem. I mean, one can just mix a bit of yellow perhaps in it to rectify it, but otherwise it really looks like a nice paint to use. So what I've done now, I've put a very small amount of paint here, and I'm now going to mix it with water so that we can also see how it responds if you use very diluted. So that's now the Iris paint, very diluted with water. And here I'm now doing the same with the Dollaroni, very diluted with water. It's approximately the same amount of paint, but it's not very scientific because I didn't weigh it. So here you can also see there's a difference in color. So it appears as this one is a bit more yellowish. So this is Dollaroni's, it's pure, the real cadmium pigment, and this is a replacement pigment from Iris. So it's called just cadmium hue, so it's not the real cadmium pigment, it's just a replacement. Unfortunately, we do not know which pigment it is because no information was given by Iris. But otherwise, if I just use it this diluted, it also appears as though the pigment quantity in the Iris paint is good. So the Iris paint appears to be very good in terms of the quantity of pigments, the buttery feeling of it, so it's really a heavy bodied paint. So the only concern I have of Iris at the moment is the light fastness. I mean, that I don't know what pigment is in it, it's not much of a concern if I would have only known the light fastness. So I'm going to repeat the test again with yellow. So here we have the Iris yellow, so I'm just going to spread it. You can get the idea. So I've got now Iris mixing with Dollaroni white, titanium white. Let me just mix it, we can see what it looks like. And that is fine, it's got a nice color. So I'm just mixing it with a lot of water. And then the Dollaroni yellow. The Dollaroni is a real cadmium yellow. It's got the pigment PY35 in it, and it's permanent, and the light fastness test according to ACM is 1. So let's spread it. Let's mix it. So it's the Dollaroni cadmium yellow mixed with the Dollaroni titanium white. Dilute it with water. I must say, in this case, the yellow of Iris, which is a cadmium yellow U, is quite similar in color in comparison to the Dollaroni's cadmium yellow, which is a true cadmium pigment. Now we're going to do the same for the blue. Unfortunately, I ran out of disk space while I was busy with the blue, so let's quickly just recap that. So for the Iris paint, we have a primary blue 003, got no idea what pigment is in it, and the light fastness, that information is not available. Then we have the Dollaroni Cryla, it's ultramarine blue, the pigment is PB29, it's got a 3-star permanency rating, and according to ACM method, light fastness 1. So the Iris brand also have a ultramarine blue, which I don't have unfortunately to compare. So with this color test, so we do not expect the colors to be the same. And then I've got another blue from Dollaroni, also Cryla. It's Phthalo blue green shade, and the pigment is PB15, and the permanence is also a 3-star rating, and the ACM light fast test says is a value of 1, which is very light fast. Okay, so over here you can see the Iris paint, just pure pigment, no dilution whatsoever. Here it's the Iris blue paint mixed with Dollaroni white, and the Iris blue paint diluted with water. And here we have the Dollaroni ultramarine blue, pure pigment, Dollaroni ultramarine blue mixed with the Dollaroni white, and the Dollaroni ultramarine blue diluted with water. And over here we then have the Dollaroni Phthalo blue green shade, pure pigment, diluted with white, titanium white, and diluted with water. So in summary, I would say the Iris paint has a nice consistency, it's got a buttery feeling to it. The amount of pigment in the paint is adequate. It spreads nicely, it covers nicely, the colors appear brilliant. If you look, the red is brilliant red, and the yellow is brilliant, and the blue is brilliant. That's not a problem. The only concern I have is the light fastness. So if you are a student or you just want to experiment, then the Iris paints are fantastic, very cost effective. But if you want to sell your work professionally, you need to be sure the paint's not gonna change color with time. So at this stage we do not have any information about it. The supplier haven't given me any information. We do not know what pigments are in it, so we can't do research on the light fastness of the pigments. So I have started a light fast test, but unfortunately these light fast tests takes months. So in the far future I will report back on the light fastness of these paints. And I'm going to take these swatches and I'm going to put it in the full blast sun, and then we're going to compare it to see how does the light fastness of the Iris paints compare to professional paint.